This is your Barbados Today Morning News Update for Friday, June 7th, 2019. Thanks for joining us. I'm Carol Williams. A former central bank governor wants Barbados to retire its currency and replace it with the US dollar. But Dr. Delisle Worrell doesn't believe Barbados should do it alone. As we hear in this Marlon Madden report, Dr. Worrell is insisting that all Caribbean states do the same.
Former central bank governor Dr. Delisle Worrell argued that the currencies of the Caribbean have now outlived their usefulness and have become a liability. In his June newsletter, The Economist said there were no longer benefits to regional economies having their own currency. He said the local currencies could be entirely redeemed by central banks by purchasing and importing US currency notes and coins using their existing foreign reserve balances. He said central banks and monetary authorities in the Caribbean all have foreign reserves sufficient to purchase US notes and coins to replace the full issue of local currency at prevailing exchange rates. Worrell described the currencies in the region as a nuisance in today's world. In his paper, Worrell named Aruba, the Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, Bermuda, Curacao, the Dominican Republic, Guyana, Haiti, Jamaica, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago as the countries that should retire their currencies. He explained that once the currencies were purchased using the country's foreign reserves, all deposits and other liabilities of the banking system would be held in digital record and be matched by an equal amount of credit and other assets also held in digital form. All he said would be required for those balances is to convert both sides of the balance sheet from local currency to the US dollar equivalent at prevailing exchange rate. Marlon Madden reporting for Barbados Today.
Meantime, research has been conducted to determine if the material used in making the Barbados paper note should be changed. Cotton is currently used by the Central Bank of Barbados to make the notes. The bank's Deputy Director of Currency, Octavia Gibson, says they're proceeding with caution since any changeover will be an expensive undertaking.
Barbados notes are made of cotton, right? US notes are made of cotton and linen. But we have know that Canada is doing notes made of polymer. This would have started with Australia. ECCB, Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, just last week released the start of their polymer series, right? And they're going to be introducing notes from now down to 2021. We're not quite finished the study that we are doing on that, because I don't believe because somebody else has polymer that you should run and go and get polymer. We need to see whether or not it suits our culture, it suits our pocket, because it's expensive.
No deal. An hours-long meeting between the bargaining agent for nurses, the National Union of Public Workers, NUPW, and representatives of the Ministries of the Civil Service and Health yesterday failed to reach agreement on the way forward regarding the two proposed 24-hour polyclinics. Acting General Secretary on the NUPW, Delcia Burke, says nurses are holding to their position. She tells Barbados Today the Ministry of Health has opted to return the 14 nurses who volunteered for the project back to their substantive posts at a geriatric hospital. The 24-hour service was due to start June 1st, but nurses objected to the shift system. Some 250 workers sent home under the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program will soon begin training in digitization. This is part of the government's retooling and retraining initiative. Minister of Innovation, Science and Smart Technology, Senator Kay McConney, announced yesterday that a private company will be assisting.
It means that we are creating a pool of resources in Barbados, not just for government projects, but for the private sector, who can then say, here is a pool of people from which I can draw that are trained and are certified to certain levels in order to help us move forward. We are also, as a government, taking new approaches to solving the challenges in the public sector. And we have, in fact, engaged one of the leading architects of Scotland's digital accelerator program, it's called CIFTech, to encourage entrepreneurship, growth and investment in the local tech sector. And you will hear more about that in the coming weeks. Now, we understand that the ground conditions here in Barbados must be ripe for this digital transformation to take place.
Senator McConney was addressing the Caribbean Institute of Management Consultants International Consultants Conference.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
In St. Lucia, a clergyman is adamantly opposed to any consideration of the legalization of obeah. The stance by senior pastor of the Castries Church of the Nazarene, Richard Spencer, follows word by a Jamaican minister that consideration is being given to making obeah legal there. But the St. Lucian clergyman has slammed the practice, saying it's an abomination, a disgrace, and a curse.
Obeah has never been inherent in us because God created us in His image, and that is original. We were created in God's image, and that's how we should attain to be. God is a pure God, and God has nothing to do with impurity. And obeah is impurity. It's an unclean spirit. When somebody conceptualize something that defiles their mind and their spirit and their body and defiles the land, surely that is an atrocious abomination. We should stay away from that.
Internationally, the African Union has suspended Sudan's membership days after the military launched a brutal crackdown on protesters that killed dozens of people. The announcement followed an emergency meeting by the African Union in Ethiopia after the violent dispersal of a protest camp in the Sudanese capital began on Monday. We get more from Al Jazeera.
An eerie quiet on the streets of the Sudanese capital. These are roadblocks set up by the protesters. We are told they're an act of defiance against the Rapid Support Forces, the group behind the raid on the protest camp on Monday. The African Union suspended Sudan following an emergency session on Thursday until a civilian government is formed. So far, nothing has been resolved to bridge the divide between the junta and the protest groups.
I think that the African Union has seemingly only just responded because the big powers are. But to me, part of my worry is that on this occasion, the Russians seem to be on the wrong side of history in that region, simply because I think there's an element of global politics in this.
Egypt, the UAE and Saudi Arabia are all countries visited recently by the head of the newly self-appointed military council. Abdel Fattah al-Burhan has called for renewed talks with the protesters, a move rejected by the opposition, who say they cannot negotiate in good faith following the recent killings.
And that's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook. And sign up for breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM. I'm Carol Williams. Have a good day.